Okay, and welcome back to Unapologetically Black Unicorns. And am I so excited? Yes, I am. Why am I excited? I'm excited because I get to introduce to you all a wonderful new person that I met through another person. We'll talk all about that. But we have a wonderful, fantabulous, passionate, exuberant, all the adjectives guest today by the name of Gaby Arriaga. Hopefully, I pronounced that correctly. And I will let Gaby introduce herself. So, Gaby, who are you?
Thank you, Karis. First off, thank you so much for having me on this podcast. I am truly blessed to be just in this space with you. So I truly appreciate that. I am a mom of two beautiful children, Selena and Benjamin, and I'm married to the most amazing man, Luis, who actually is truly an inspiration for a lot of my work that I want to do soon here. I am by trade a social worker, but more than that, I am an advocate for kids. I am their champion. I'm a healer. I am kids' safety place. I'm their cheerleader. I'm the one who holds the pain for them so they can breathe more easily. I'm the one who shows them the mirror when all they see is unworthiness. I am all those things. So I truly value what I do, and I try to make myself that one person that these kids can go to whenever they need to. That one person that they trust, that one person that has just been a positive support for them.
Wow. Wow. So now y'all see why I wanted to speak with her because that all came through when I met you, and I met you over the summer through a good friend of mine. I was going to say he's a colleague, but okay, he's my little brother from a different mother and father. And that is Dr. Jorge Partida, who has been on the podcast before. And that heartfelt passion for the people comes through, must be something in your family because it comes through him and it comes through you as well. And so just in our being together for the little time we were together, I was just so moved about your desire and your passions to work with kids, especially kids who have been multiply impacted by all sorts of stuff. So can you talk a little bit about that area in particular?
Yeah, so I first began my practice as a clinical therapist. And so part of my role was to take on referrals from youth that were on intensive probation. They were mandated to be in therapy. If not, their next path would be incarceration, right? They had one last chance. That is where I met many of the youth who were in gangs. I have been trained in trauma and trauma practices, but I always felt like something was missing in the typical Western therapy model. It didn't really fit these kind of kids. I've always been natural. I've never wanted to pretend to be something I'm not. I wear my feelings on my sleeve, and I show up into sessions, and they can see me as a human being, not just as a therapist, but as a person with lived experience, a person who can relate to them culturally. But I also speak their language, and so actually, this is why this speaking to you eloquently and things like that is difficult for me because I'm constantly speaking to kids in slang terms, and
Oh, girl, bring
because
on the
that's
slang. Bring on the slang. We do it all here. This is not a this is all about authenticity. So even if Gabby, you say things in Spanish, which I have had other guests do it in whatever way is most comfortable for you. For our Spanish speakers, they will get it. For those of us who don't speak Spanish, well, we get to be in the shoes of people who don't understand English and we're speaking English all the time. So yeah, be comfortable, man. Do you?
yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I've noticed that I've been able to connect with these kids when I drop an F bomb here or there, and their eyes just light up like, "Oh, she swore."
Mhm.
But I was seeing these kids as a therapist. I was seeing them in their homes and the community, at McDonald's, wherever I could hold a session. Weekly, I would have supervision meetings with my boss, and this one day I came with a story, and I asked her to kind of start it off and break the ice. I said, "Hey, Gail, what do you think about purchasing a bulletproof vest for me?" And she looks at me, and she's like, "Gabby, what?" And I began to tell her the story of one of my kids who we ended up having our session walking around his neighborhood because his house was so full of just different things. I think his parent had a problem with hoarding. And so we went into the community, to have our session. And a couple houses down, there's a person in the porch, a male, who's staring in our direction. And so he's staring kind of a little too long. And I asked the kid, I said, "Hey, do you know him?" And he's like, "No, miss, but don't worry. I'll protect you. I'm always packing." And I'm like, "Wait, what?" You have a gun on you now? Like, what? And so telling her that story, she began to be very concerned for me. And although she knew that I can handle the youth, she started to fear me seeing these kids in the community, which honestly, I never really feared that. I have a sense of faith that God has put me in this place, this calling to work with like his most vulnerable children, and I don't take that lightly. And I really try to be that physical embodiment of what God has called us to be, and to like love other people and to respect others and to lend out a hand when you have one, right? And to just help people. I also got that from my parents. I come from two amazing Mexican immigrant parents who instilled these values in my siblings and I, of being humble, but just always helping, always giving. That's just the type of people they are. Even when we didn't have much to give, they were always giving. And so I
Mhm.
just fell into this field of social work naturally. I didn't try too hard. And, I wasn't good in math. I wasn't good in science. It just seemed like I had a phrase on my forehead that said, "Come tell me all your problems. I will hear you out."
Mhm.
People just naturally came to me. I feel like because of my authenticity and just being genuine, people have been able to come talk to me. And I also am a person who I've always been very curious. My brother would say I was nosy and a chismosa, but it developed into being a chismosa for the right reasons, because I want to help them out, and I want to be able to provide the resources and connect them to things that they are lacking.
Yeah, that's really when you were talking about, asking for a bulletproof vest. It reminds me of when I'm in my community, where I live here, but I'm out and about and I'm interacting with our community members who are unhoused. And I call those our neighbors. And, I know them by name. One day I walk by and the young woman, really, she was a teenager, was out sweeping and picking up the trash and putting the trash in the trash bag. And I knew there were three other young men with her. And I was kind of looking around for the three other young men, and they were in the tent just lounging, like in the tent that they had set up. And I asked her, I said, "Yo, what's with you doing the quote unquote housework and the three dudes in the tent?" And she said, "Oh yeah, well, I'm trying to keep our space clean." And so I said, "I really appreciate that, but that's not what I'm talking about. Why are the three dudes in the tent?" And I looked and I said, "Guys, get out here and help her." Right. And I know people were walking by going, "She is going to get killed. They're going to beat her up," that kind of stuff. And the
Right.
guys were like, "Yeah, we probably should help." And I said, "Yeah, you should. And I'll help you too." So all of us were like sweeping and picking up the trash and things like that. And I was asking them, why had they chosen this space to live? And, not trying to be demeaning about it at all, but just trying to understand why. And, they gave me their reasons why. And I literally couldn't argue against them. It was like, yeah, I don't know
Mhm.
what to say to that. And I said, "Well, if
Right.
you ever need this, that, or the other, this is, I'm sure you all know where these things are, but if you don't, this is where it are." And then I introduced myself, and then they introduced themselves, and they said, "Yeah, and everybody, if anybody tries to like do any shit to you, we got you covered." And it's like, "Thank you so much. I don't know what that means, but I
Yeah.
do know what it means. But what it means is that we're protected.
And
And
the
I,
fact
I
that you
know it's
saw them, people
yeah,
ignore them, you
yeah,
saw them. People just want to
yeah.
be seen, they want to be heard.
Yeah. So when you are working with young people, what are some of the reasons you think that kids end up in things like gangs or have those kind of interactions? Or I don't want to call it a lifestyle because I don't think it's a lifestyle. I think there are other things at
Mhm.
hand that have pushed kids into
Absolutely. That's
situations.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's different factors here, but one of the main factors I see is the adverse childhood experiences. So different traumatic events that have really pushed them out of their house. Kids don't join gangs to seek anything. Mainly, they're trying to escape their home environment. They're trying to find a sense of belonging because they don't feel that they belong in their own families. It's a generational cycle of poverty and violence and trauma until somebody decides to break that cycle and get help or get support. And so that's what I've seen with these kids. It's that they're just really looking to be loved. They're looking to have somebody that cares about them. And when I've asked them, what are your three wishes that you could have, it always comes down to, I wish my mother loved me. I wish my
Mhm.
father never left.
Mhm.
Always comes down to that love and that connection. It all falls on the relationship. And
Mhm.
so that's so simple, because when you're trying to train staff, you're trying to train educators or just other people on how to work with children in general. The constant question of like, just give me a strategy. Just give me a strategy. Give me a tool, something that I can do, something quick that I can engage with them. And it's like, people, the strategy is, you got to care. Like, you actually have to just be genuine and care about these kids in front of you. Teachers are no longer just teachers, they have to see the whole person. You unfortunately, it is what it is. You're a nurse because kids will ask you for band-aids. You're a therapist because they want to tell you their problems and what happened in the morning or in their day. Like, they are no longer just teachers. And I feel for them. It is a very, very hard job, but it's also a source of pride, and it's a source of like fulfillment to be able to be that person for these kids, to
Mhm.
finally show them something different, and to
Mhm.
show them that they do matter and that they are cared for, at least in school, right? And school can be their second home, or a home away from home, if they don't even have that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so powerful. I mean, I think teaching has always been about the whole child and caring for the whole child. I don't know when in our universe that has changed, but I think, and maybe because there are more regulations, or there are more kids, or there are more social issues that kids are bringing into schools with them, and maybe teachers are impacted by in their own lives, that it becomes harder and harder to individualize that love and care for each child. I think teachers do it. I think they do their best, but yeah, it's tough. It's a tough job.
Yeah, no, they definitely do. Honestly, I think it's more of the systems that are already just in place that do not support the teachers. One teacher for 30 something kids is that's ridiculous.
Mhm.
The classrooms are overcrowded. How can they connect and teach what they have to teach, and with 34 kids in a span of 53 minutes,
Yeah.
or sometimes less? It is very difficult, very difficult. But we have to start somewhere, and I think it just starts with kindness, and remembering that these kids are carrying some heavy, heavy, heavy luggage of a variety of factors: homelessness and poverty and violence, and just the traumatic experiences. The trauma is huge, and I think people have overused that term lately. They tend to use that term quite often. So for listeners, I want them to know that it's really, these kids have PTSD symptoms. Like, they have symptoms that our veterans coming back from war have. The flashbacks, the nightmares, the anxiety, the lack of sleep, the changes in appetite. They have all of that.
Hmm.
And I can see it. I visibly see it. I notice students who are like in a very crowded hallway trying to just like hide in their turtle shell and not be seen, right? Or kids who put their hair in front of their face to avoid being seen. During the pandemic, the masks made it really helpful for kids because they were able to hide behind that. Even after masks were removed, you still saw kids wearing the masks.
Mm-hmm.
And so they tend to hide behind that. Kids wear hoodies for a sense of comfort. It's another mechanism they use to not be seen, to be hidden, or
Mm-hmm.
to hide even, maybe physical marks that they don't want others to see. There's so many reasons, and I'm the type of person that takes the time to find out why the behavior is occurring, because all behavior is communication.
Yeah.
Many people are just very quick to judge and very quick to just expect certain things that expect perfection out of kids that is not attainable.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not attainable. None of us are perfect, so why do we expect children to be when their brains are not even done developing yet, right? Like,
Yeah.
and then you add trauma to the mix, and so that also affects the way that their brains function. And people need to remember that. People need to be trained in that. There needs to be a lot more training and educating if they're just not getting it.
Wow, wow. And I don't, we didn't talk about this in particular, but how do we also the child exists within some kind of structure, whether it be a family of choice, family of birth, community. I don't really quite know the words, especially for kids who may be under other kind of systems of not just care, but also, where they're living. Or how do we think about supporting the quote unquote family? I'm just going to call it family because I don't, and I'm putting it in air quotes. How do we support them if the family is struggling and then that becomes part of the continuation of the trauma for the kid? Where does supporting that family come in so that the cycle can stop?
That's a loaded question. It really is
Yeah.
that I don't have all the answers to that, but it starts with awareness. I think we have to create the awareness first that these experiences have affected all of us. They affect all of us in the community. They affect our homes, our families, our schools, all the systems. When the statistics say that 1 in 3 girls will be sexually abused before they reach 18, and 1 in 5 boys before they reach 18 would be sexually abused. That is just, it is alarming. It is sickening. And I see it. I see it firsthand. When
Hmm.
I get a student in my office, I take the time to get to know them fully. I do a genogram, which is my quickest way to get as much information as I can the first time I'm meeting a student, so that I am able to see the whole picture as quickly as I can, because I'm servicing so many children. And because I build such great relationships, my office is constantly busy. I have to tell kids, hold on 1 sec, I gotta go pee. Hold on a sec, can I eat in front of you? And that's just the nature of the work. And I don't complain about that, because I'd rather sit with a kid having lunch and just continue to serve. That's my role there. It's for me. It's really not just the job, and I think that that's the difference. Is some people do this work, to put food on the table, and because they went to school for it and whatnot. This was my calling. I know that God put me in this place. Like, there's nothing else I could do. I've thought about
Hmm.
it. I've thought about stepping away. I've thought about, like, I have some retail experience, but no, I don't want to go back to that. It's like,
Yeah.
I think that honestly, I am humble, but I'm really, really good at what I do.
Hmm.
I am excellent at getting these kids to trust me and to open up. And they
Hmm.
do it with the first time they meet me. And
Hmm.
it's because I am genuine. They see it. But I've created the space. If you come into my office, it'll look like a Latin American museum almost. But
Hmm.
I have different signage and different things like "Mi casa es tu casa." You belong here. I see you. I hear you. I'm with you. Black Lives Matter, different things that I have my LGBTQ flag, I have my Mexican flag, and then I have a bunch of boxing gloves of all different types of Latin American countries, because that's the population I'm serving.
Hmm.
And so just being in my space, I think, allows them already to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
It feels homey. I don't have a desk or a barrier between me and the child, because I even believe that having a physical space, an open physical space, is so important. I can run to them quickly if they're in danger to themselves. I can run quickly out of the office if I need to. But for me, it's just that openness,
Yeah.
the I am here, I'm with you, and I'm going to walk in this pain with you. I'm going to
Mm.
hold that pain for you until you can find that hope, and until you can see that you deserve to be loved and respected.
Yeah. Yeah, that is so, so, so powerful. And there's a tool if people really want a quick tool, change what your office looks like, please.
Yes.
You know, and it's so funny. People used to make fun of me when I worked in college admissions, and they would come in my office, and I would have all sorts of games and puzzles, and um, but because we had to interview kids, I thought young people, well, kids, yeah, they're kids, 15, 16, sometimes 14, would be as young as 14. And I would not wear a suit ever. Everybody, like, that was one of everybody in the office would wear suits, or very professional type clothing. And I just refused to do it because at the end of the day, I felt like I need to be at the level of the person that I'm talking to so that they'll open up with me during this time so we can discover, like, what are their interests, passions, why this particular school, and for some of them, why they were there, which was not why they wanted to be there, it was why their parents wanted them to be there. So
Mhm.
we could ferret through, what does this mean and how do we want to move forward, and really what is of interest to you. So and they would play with the game. Like, this was before fidget toys, so I think my toys were fidget toys. That
Uh-huh.
we didn't
Yeah.
have that term then. They would fidget with the toys, they would play with the toys. Sometimes we would play a game while we were talking. And I did actually have the highest rating for interviewing students who would turn into applicants, and many of them would end up becoming, coming to the school. Others would not, which was fine because really sometimes not the point. But at the end of the day, it was because I created this safe place for
Mhm.
applicants to just talk about what they
For
wanted
sure.
their futures to look like. And
Yeah.
so you had
Yeah.
said at the top too, something about social work and sort of the Western way of doing things. And again, not to throw down on the social workers, but kind of when we let's just talk about like the Western way of doing things versus other ways of doing things. Like what are some of the differences, do you think?
I honestly am in the early stages of really getting into other modalities or other ways of providing genuine treatment for people of color. I know that Jorge, speaks a lot about curanderismo. I actually would like to study something like that. I've always felt that in my soul that, like, as reading the textbooks and things, I'm like, this just doesn't feel right, like something's missing. And I think that it's real deep, it's much deeper than that, is we carry our ancestors trauma, but we also carry all their strength and wisdom. And Jorge talks a lot about that in a lot of his books, of of belonging to something greater than ourselves, greater than just our home environment. And honestly, just that mentality or that phrase I've been using kind of recently with some of my students who, talk about not having the parent figures they would like, or just, parents who are abusing substances, parents who are mentally ill, or just not present, right? Just not the parents that these kids would have hoped for. And so, really, when we talk about hope, it's talking about this idea that, although you were birthed to these two people, you belong to a much greater
Mm,
group of people. You belong to these ancestors who died for you, who fought for you, who, still carry you through, and perhaps that's why you're still standing here today. Because how
mm,
can you go through all this abuse and neglect, physical, sexual, what have you? And I'm speaking kind of in general terms of all the things that kids tell me. How can they go through all that and still stand there today and still try? People complain that, they're in the hallways and that they don't go to class consistently or that they're tardy, but Jesus, the things these kids have had to endure. It's
mm-hmm.
like, I don't know how I would do it if that
Yeah,
happened to me.
yeah.
I have no idea. And so I don't even come close to judging how they're doing it. The fact that you're just in the school building, to me, is as
Mm-hmm.
a win, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because you could just be on the street. You could be like many of my kids who school has also re-traumatized them or failed them and has pushed them out. I don't believe in dropouts. I don't believe in that term. I think that the system has pushed them out eventually because they could have noticed, they could have seen things starting since elementary. You know, they could have noticed things, because most kids who begin to join gangs, it kind of starts around 11, 12 years old. And so if you think about that, it's like, what could these kids have possibly faced in their lifetime at just 11, 12 years old, that they felt the need to have to go find a family at that age on the street?
Yep. Yep. And thank you for talking about the difference of dropout versus pushed out. Dropout puts it on the individual, pushed out puts it on the systems and other places that have just woefully failed our kids. So I'm going to ask you two questions. One is about, if you could close your eyes and dream up like how you would want to work, or how you would want to see how you're working with kids in community, like what would you dream of? Well, how do you see that?
I'm actually really trying to start my own nonprofit organization for youth involved in gangs, or youth who are toying with the idea to join a gang. And so I envision that what I want to create would look like Homeboy Industries out of LA County. That is the world's largest gang program, the most successful in the world. They have served billions of gang members, and they believe in providing jobs as opposed to incarcerating. They primarily work with adults, and so I'd like to take their idea and find a way to do that for youth. There are many youth who want to help their families, and they're not at the age to begin to work. In Illinois, the age to work is 15 with a work permit. Like I said, if kids are joining gangs at 11, 12 years old, trying to, sell drugs to make money or what have you, then we need to be able to provide some way for these children to get stipends or internships or something, that they could have some money in their pocket. If they're raising themselves, if they're lacking resources, I want to be able to create what the gang life offers, in obviously in a better space, and in a space where they're going to be truly loved and respected, where they're going to be able to take care of themselves financially, some job training. So that's kind of how I envision my future work looking like. And honestly, so I thought about this just last year. The whole year that I was working at this one school, the building had not been tagged by gang graffiti for the entire year. I have this idea one day, 3 days later, there is a huge graffiti. There's huge graffiti on this wall that I drive past every day, that obviously was extremely noticeable to me. And literally, I looked up to the sky and I'm like, God, you really want me to do this, huh?
Mm,
It
mm,
was the biggest sign you could put on me, because I just had this idea. It was just a thought, like maybe I should kind of venture out and do my own thing, and something that I've always been passionate about. Maybe this is the right time. And like I said, 3 days later, big old gang graffiti.
wow.
I then took the trip this past summer to visit Homeboy Industries, to visit Jorge, and that's when I met you, Karis. And I've grown up in a Catholic family with having going to church, going to Catholic school. I no longer practice, but I have never felt God more than I did walking into Homeboy Industries, where there were a bunch of former criminals, convicts, right? Murderers, probably, people tatted up. And they were the most welcoming folk I have ever met.
Yeah.
People were outside. Like, what they do is they hold this like morning meeting every single day before they begin their jobs, or before they go to their different placements, because Homeboy is so large, they have different job training programs. So they hold this meeting and everybody comes together, and it's just a group of people, and one of the homies or one of the workers will just kind of give like a food for thought, or just good vibes, good energy, a statement of some sort. It's not a prayer. It's more of just like either an experience, a quote, something that they just, to come together every single morning to do. I was shaken up. I had like I was drawn to tears. I was like, I
Mm.
could not believe that this space, like you felt God there. His
Yeah.
presence was there.
Yeah.
And I was not in a church. I was not in, this very religious venue. I couldn't believe it. It
Yeah.
was amazing to me, and it just fueled me more, fueled my energy. Like, yes, this is what I want. I know that this can be done here, because honestly, in where I live now, we don't really have a resource like that for kids. They kind of just put it back on the schools, and we try to help as much as possible, or we link them up to therapy. But what gang member is going to really sit and be like, oh yeah, I'll take some therapy, miss? Like
Exactly.
it's not,
Exactly.
it doesn't work that way. And I want to have a space where these kids will have the job training, be in community with one another, be able to work with one another, and do it more in a group therapy model as opposed to the individual.
Mhm.
Because culturally, with Black and brown people, like, we have always been a community of people,
Yeah.
right? And it's
Yeah.
always been, we've always believed in it takes a village to
Mhm.
raise these kids. And so I really don't believe in individual therapy anymore. Like, it has to be more group work and family work,
Mhm.
a lot of family work, because as much as you can work with the individual, and you're trying to change their thought pattern, and you're trying to change this and that, and they can, have growth, and they can be successful. But if the home unit doesn't change, they keep going back to that environment.
Yeah.
So what are you actually solving there? It
Yeah.
has to be a whole team effort. It has to be the entire family unit. And
Yeah.
so, long story short, that's what I would like to do. I'm looking for investors. Anybody out there? If
Go for it,
Homeboy
girl. Go
Industries
for
would
it.
just like to, Homeboy
Yeah.
Industries would just like to help me out. I know that they do have a Homeboy network, so I got to reach out to them. But I actually had paused on my idea, because my husband coincidentally just wanted to start his construction business out of nowhere. And I'm like, okay, Luis, like, why
Yeah.
don't we just do two businesses at once? That's such a great idea. Not. So I'm like, you know what? You would be able to have a lot more kind of quicker success, because he's the handyman of the house. He's the one that can do all these things. He can build me a home. And so we thought that, we'll start with him first. And so I paused my idea, and I paused everything that I was going to do, even though I had already envisioned the space and this building that I wanted. So when I decided to pause again, like a couple weeks later, the building I want goes up for sale.
Mm.
And again, I'm like, God, why are you putting these signs like
Mhm.
in my face, right? Like, it just keeps motivating me that I really should start doing this, that it is a
Yeah.
need. It is definitely a need. And if there's anybody that can do it, it has to be me. Like,
Yep.
it's me. I have the passion, I have the drive, I have the commitment. I love these kids. I've had success with these kids. If I could reach out to all the students I have been in contact with throughout these 12 years of doing this work, I would have countless stories and countless people who will testify that I have helped them in some way. That'll
Yeah.
just testify that I was that one person that showed them hope, that one person that made them just feel differently, right? They
Yep.
may not remember what I said to them, but everybody remembers how they felt with me.
Right, right. And it just takes that one person, and it takes speaking your dream into the world, which you just did now, and you've done it before, which I think when you speak it out into the world, it will happen, right? And you're so right about Homeboy Industries. I mean, you go in there and there's just something, I always use the word palpable, but it's not palpable. Like, you walk in and it's chicken skin. That's not what people say. What is it?
Yes,
Goosebumps.
yes, yes.
Yeah, I don't know.
Goosebumps.
Yeah, you get the goose, like you
My
just
my
walk in and
friend
it's
from
like
college would
goosebumps.
say, "The skin of a chicken."
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, chicken skins. Yeah, you get that immediately when you walk in, and you might not even know why nothing's even happened yet. You just walk in and that happens, and there's such an
Mhm.
energy there that is, when I was running a peer run organization, or people, it's not really when I was running a peer run organization that this kind of came up, but I always, was thinking at that time, that when people think about mental health or helping people with mental health conditions, they think of something serene and soft and quiet. And I'm like bright colors and energy and just happiness and lots of sunflowers. And I'm thinking like, people are like, no, we need spa colors and we need to whisper. And you go into Homeboys and it's kind of like, yes, that's
Loud. It's
loud.
loud.
It's loud,
Yeah.
it's active. People are, kids are in there, families are in there,
Mhm.
men with their baby strollers and the babies. I mean, it's just
And they
like,
come as they are. They come as
yeah,
they are. They're
yeah,
not even in
love that.
uniform. They're not dressed up
Yeah,
like with suits or anything. They
nope,
come as they are, and that's the
nope,
most
just
beautiful
people,
thing I've ever seen.
community
The
people.
fact that like you're only hiring people who have records, like
Yeah,
you're the you're the place that these people can go to when everybody else shuts their door, right?
yeah,
Like these are the outcasts of the world, and I'm tired of seeing that. I'm tired of the school to prison pipeline. I'm
yeah,
tired of these kids being like thrown away as if they have no importance or value. Like
yeah.
I'm at that point where I'm just exhausted seeing it, and I have to try to do something about it if I can.
Wonderful, wonderful. So thank you for sharing your dream with us, and y'all heard her. I'm looking for investors. Girl, don't squeak about it. Scream it out there. If you want investors, you can say it. People, I tell people I don't endorse or sell anything. That's not the purpose of the podcast. But certainly, if people, have written a book or need something, use the platform to say what it is you need. That's fine.
I appreciate that.
I'm even
I
saying
appreciate
she says she needs it, so y'all just reach out. So anyway, so we're gonna wrap up, and you've dropped tons and tons of great information and wisdom, and I do this with all of the guests as a way to kind of leave the listeners with all the information that people drop. Like, what's that one last thing that you want people to know or do or think about? So for you, Gaby, what's your wisdom dropping? What's that one last thing?
So I'm not sure who I'm quoting when I say this. I tried to look it up because it popped up on a Facebook memory that I had wrote a while ago. I didn't quote him then, and I didn't quote him now, so I have no idea where this came from. But life is not about laws and legalism. It is about love, forgiveness, compassion, and mercy. And I want people to remember to start seeing behavior as another language. It is communication. Beneath every behavior is a feeling. Beneath every feeling, there's a need. And when we meet that need, rather than focus on the behavior, that's when we're dealing with the cause and not the symptom.
Snap, clap, thumbs up. Amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you for those words. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for joining me on Unapologetically Black Unicorns.
Thank you so much, Karis. I truly appreciate you.
Sure thing. All right, people, y'all know what to do now beyond investing in a Gabby's dream. We're going to call it Gabby's dream. Beyond investing in Gabby's dream, my producer, of course, would say you're supposed to like, subscribe, and comment. But as you all know, the most important thing is to share the podcast episode. There are going to be people who need to hear this information, need to hear this wisdom. And I think that's the biggest thing that I could ask our listeners to do is to share the podcast episode and to listen in next week to Unapologetically Black Unicorns.